Hello and welcome to this iteration of my recreational tactics series, where we intend to replicate real-life managerial tactics in FIFA as true to life as possible. Now, today we're going to be looking at Erik ten Hag's Ajax. Before we begin, I would like to preface this by saying I have tested and played these tactics on my own personal sliders for a more realistic football experience. These sliders should be on your screen as I speak. While they are subject to change in their current form, I do feel like they do simulate football a whole lot better than FIFA does in its base form. I would highly recommend testing out sliders for realism yourself. It's just much more fun, especially in career mode, where the whole point is realism. Now, after Ajax's historic Champions League run under Erik ten Hag in the 2018-19 season, where they were less than a minute away from making the final, they've since lost a fair few of their key players to bigger clubs or old age. However, this season they look as though they might be back to that same best, with a strong mix of experienced veterans and promising youth that took a very tough group in the Champions League by storm, and boasts a whopping plus 52 goal difference in the Eredivisie as of recording this. He's also made a few tactical tweaks since then, which are very interesting, but are clearly working. So, onto the formation. It's almost a mirror image of my buying tactics that went up recently, with the only difference being which fullback is pushed up. So, speaking of, you will have your right fullback here pushed up to right wing back. You want your left side defensive midfield, so it's a 4-2-3-1, obviously. Right. You want your left side defensive midfielder pushed up to left side central midfielder, and then we're going to push both your left midfield and your right midfield up to the winger roles here. Now, the point of pushing Managerial up here is that he takes up higher and wider positions than Blind. He'll prefer to tuck inside more often than not. Gravenberg pushed up to central midfield, allows him to play up alongside Berghaus in the final third. And then obviously wingers, it allows them to just, put a bit more pressure on opposition fullbacks, force them to be, noticed and marked, which allows them to stretch the pitch out a little bit more when they hold the width, which we'll discuss later in instructions. Now, you can kind of see it here, but what this sort of forms in possession is either a 3-2-2-3 or a 2-3-2-3, depending on Blind's movement, when Mazraoui tucks into the midfield, Gravenberg pushes up. But Ajax's positional fluidity under Ten Hag makes trying to pin their tactics down with numbers a losing game. So, moving on to the tactics. You're going to have them on press after possession loss, 30 width and 90 depth. Press after possession loss, they counter press hard immediately after losing possession. They really try to win that ball back ASAP. But when that counter press fails, they do drop back and become hard to play through when that initial press is unsuccessful. And to press after possession loss replicates that fairly accurately. Now, width, you're going to push all the way up to 30, which is technically no longer narrow, it's balanced. While it's still obviously, it's one away from being narrow, so it's still fairly narrow as opposed to like the other 70. What it allows you to do is when you do lose the ball out near the wings, the other players in your team, particularly the midfielders, will push out wide to try and pressure that loose ball, which is what they do in real life when they do lose the ball, anywhere in the pitch. All the players who are near it will try to close it down quickly, and this just replicates that a little bit better. Now, depth, they play a high line, it's a high press, you push it all the way up to 90 to supplement that. Fairly self-explanatory. Now, as with most high press tactics, you'll probably see me activate a team press by clicking down your D-pad and left on your D-pad from goal kicks, which is how most teams who play high press will do. They will set up fairly high and try, and as soon as that ball is played, they will pounce on it. Unfortunately, unless you're playing with constant pressure, no matter what depth or type of press you're playing, they won't do that automatically, so you use your manual team press to trigger that. Now, offensive tactics, slow build up, possession, 20 width, 7 players in box, and then I've gone with 4 and 4 for corner kicks. Now, it's obviously, it's tiki-taka, it's total football, whatever you want to call it. It's very Cruyffian. It was obviously inspired by Cruyff, and it helps that he works under Pep at Bayern for Bayern's second team. Pep being a manager who worked under Cruyff, so on both levels there, be it the Dutch heritage and his managerial experience under Pep, it's very much Cruyffian football, total football, and that's very evident in the style of play. So, both in the slow build-up and possession, they really there's an emphasis on keeping the ball. When you have the ball, you enjoy the ball, as one of the commentators says constantly, and it does my head in. And they really do like to keep possession in the opposition's half, tire the defenders, drag them around, and eventually carve out an opening. Now 20 width is not just to supplement that. Of course, playing more narrow, having closer passing options does play into that tiki-taka style of football. But what you really want this for is the counter press. What this 20 width gives you is compactness the moment you lose possession. Because players are already near each other, and therefore near where the ball was lost, ideally, they can more easily pounce on the lost ball in the counter press, which is something that Ajax have intentionally done and tend to exploit. Players in box 7, 3 or 4 players in the box generally. Obviously the front 3, Antony, Tadic and Haller, will be getting into the box. And then usually one of Gravenberch, Berghaus or even Mazraoui might drive into the box a bit later, while the others provide passing options at the edge to recycle possession. Now corners and free kicks, I've pushed up to 4 because I struggle to score from set pieces, and that man advantage just helps me to actually get a free man or at least a one-on-one to win that header. That's just personal preference. You don't have to play with these. They don't do anything out of the ordinary for corners and free kicks, really. But I would recommend pushing them up, but you don't really lose much. So that brings us on to the instructions. Now, start with the goalkeeper. Comes across as a sweeper keeper. Now, fairly self-explanatory again. The 11th man to play out from the back with greater efficiency. Provides covers for the defenders when the high line is broken through, so it's what you get from a sweeper keeper. Comes crosses, it's just a necessity in FIFA, realistically. You're going to concede way too many goals from crosses that you should be able to defend if your keeper isn't coming out to claim them every time it's in his 6-yard area at least. Centre halves, you will want to switch one of these to aggressive interceptions and step up. It doesn't matter who it is, as in real life for Ajax, it sort of changes based on the game situation. In FIFA, maybe switch it at halftime or do one each game for the sake of stamina. I used Martinez throughout the game because he was very good at this the second time out against Dortmund in the Champions League, while Timber dealt with Haaland excellently in that sole covering role. And so that's what this does. It leaves one defender one-on-one with the team striker, while the other almost pushes out and acts like another defensive midfielder to cut out any passes and stop attacks before they really gain any momentum. Now, left back, Daley Blind. Most plays flow through him. He's very good on the ball. He can play out from a back 3, or he can push forward into the midfield to act as almost a deep line playmaker. And that's what you're trying to replicate here with balance attack and inverted runs. So he will tuck inside, and he will sometimes push forward in midfield when he tucks, but not every time. Sometimes he'll stay in for that back 3. Whereas Mazraoui, on the other hand, will have his wing back on join the attack and inverted runs. And this, he takes up wider, more advanced positions than Blind, as we alluded to before. And he really does get forward at almost every opportunity, usually tucking into a midfield 2, midfield pivot alongside Alvarez, as he's better on the ball. And then once the possession has just, progressed further into the opposition's half, he'll then either drive down the touchline overlapping Antony, or underlap Antony into the box to be played through. The reason you don't have him on bounced here, mixed, but rather inverted, is because having him on inverted has him do both throughout the game on FIFA, which is weird, but it replicates what you're trying to replicate, I guess, so whatever. Moving on to Alvarez in defensive midfield. Now, he's a So I'll run through the instructions. Balance defense, stay back while attacking, aggressive interceptions, cover center, free roam. Now, he's a very good ball winner, which is why you want him on stay back, aggressive interceptions, and cover center. So he sort of holds that center in defense and cuts out attacks, pounces on loose touches and all that. But what he tends to do is offload the ball to his more technically gifted teammates, and so that's why you have him on stay back. Sorry, but you do still want him on free roam here to sort of replicate the positional fluidity of Ten Hag's Ajax, as if the situation requires it, he will push forward and provide a passing option, or even drop into the back two to provide a passing option. So it's purely game dependent, and having him on stick to positions really doesn't replicate that at all. And while free roam over replicates it to an extent, it's better than the alternative. Now, onto Gravenberch in the central midfield. I want to get forward, balance crossing runs, normal interceptions, drift wide, cover wing. Now, the get forward is very important. You want him to take up those advanced pockets of spaces where he sort of thrives. He plays almost akin to Pogba at Juventus, I'll say, where he's almost like a Mezzala, especially in the build-up, where he does tuck out wide and provide a wider passing option where Blind doesn't. But higher up the pitch, he definitely plays more centrally next to Berghaus, but having Tadic out wide on the left will force him not to drift out wide more often than not. Unless it's full passing play, which also works well. So it really does replicate it well, having him on get forward and the drift wide. Now, you'll have both, and I'll get to Berghaus as well, but they're both going to be on balanced crossing runs. Because you don't want them getting into the box in every opportunity. You want to have a bit more emphasis on possession. But when the run into the box is on, they will make it. And then cover wing is... So cover wing, like I alluded to before, when the ball is lost out wide, the midfielders in particular will push out and pressure that. And so it's just attempting to replicate that a little bit more. The scripture says it's defensive open wing if teammate isn't marking, and that is, what it does primarily do. But it still does force him out wide in the press, more so than he would if you had him on stay centre. So once again, the best way to replicate it. Now, moving on to Berghaus. Obviously a very controversial signing. He was the star player and captain of Ajax's fiercest rivals, Feyenoord. But he's been a great signing. He plays excellently in behind that front three, feeding them through, and then driving into space when space opens up, thanks to the wingers holding the width, which we'll discuss when I get to them in a second. So you want to come back on defense to sort of supplement that press, balance cross runs as I explained, free roam, replicating that positional fluidity and providing a constant passing option from deeper straight into him, line breaking passes, and then normal interceptions. Now, you have the same instructions for both wingers, and that's going to be come back on defense, stay wide, get in behind, and get into the box for crosses. Now, for most wingers that play like somewhat even traditional wingers, or any play like a winger, you're going to probably want the one getting behind. That's just how it is. They run in behind the opposition, get balls played through them. That's the job of a winger. And they're getting into the box for crosses because they are really a front three. They are the two main, really, although they hold the width, they are really the two main goal scorers behind, up below Haller, and really next to Berghaus as well. But that's a job they cut inside from out wide when the cross is on. But for most of possession, you actually want them to hold the width and really stretch the opposition, as we explained before, while the fullbacks and the midfield do the job in the middle of the pitch. And this is where he mainly differs from his side that made the Champions League semi-final in 2019, where they would actually have, your modern footballing team. They'd have, the inverted wingers, and they'd have the fullbacks overlapping. Now those two roles are switched, which is an interesting switch, but it's, like I said, it's working. Ignore the voice crack. So, now Anthony will sometimes cut inside when Managerial overlaps, and he will do that, thank God, even though you have him on stay wide. It's the get in behind instruction that will have him do that when Managerial overlaps. But yeah, more often than not, he does hold that width. And Tadic as well will cut inside on the more rare occasion that Gravenberch drifts out behind him. But yes, generally they're the widest players on the pitch when Ajax are in position, and it also allows them to angle their runs in behind a bit more, beating the offside trap because they've got that bit more, it's more of a horizontal curved run rather than straight through. They've got more time, longer to time it, and it does mean that they receive the ball generally a bit further out wide to the goal, where the keeper can't comfortably challenge them for it. Now, last but not least, Haller up front. From a Premier League flop to top scorer in the Eredivisie, and of course also in the Champions League with one more than Robert Lewandowski. So that's an insane turnaround. He's provided a completely new dynamic to Ajax in attack. He allows them to cross the ball in with much more success and confidence because he's such a towering figure, leads the line in attack, and cuts off defending or passing options out of possession. So all that being said, you want him on stay central, target man, aggressive interceptions, and stay forward. Leading the line with target man, stay central, and stay forward, and aggressive interceptions to cut out those passing options as we just explained. And that just about does it. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. Please, in the comment section, if you have any, tactics that you do want me to recreate in the near future, let me know. I'll add them to the list. If more people ask for it, or if I just really like the idea, I will prioritize it. I've got a few more in the works right now. Some that have been requested, some that I just feel like are underappreciated managers right now that I haven't heard a lot about. So that my next video will be that. So keep that on the down low for a minute. Last thing as always, please, check out in the description the links to Geography FIFA's Discord server where I am a staff member, and I'm happy to help you out with tactics there or anything really. It's a great little community, and more importantly, Geography FIFA's YouTube channel, top bloke, great channel, covers a lot of different FIFA related content that is all, very entertaining, very informative. So please check him out. Hope to see you in the Discord server. Hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.